Psalm 136. His steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord of lords, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who alone does great wonders, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who by understanding made the heavens, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who spread out the earth above the waters, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who made the great lights, for his steadfast love endures forever. The sun to rule over the day, for his steadfast love endures forever. The moon and stars to rule over the night, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who struck down the firstborn of Egypt, for his steadfast love endures forever, and brought Israel out from among them, for his steadfast love endures forever. With a strong hand and an outstretched arm, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who divided the Red Sea in two, for his steadfast love endures forever, and made Israel pass through the midst of it, for his steadfast love endures forever. But overthrew Pharaoh and his host in the Red Sea, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who led his people through the wilderness, for his steadfast love endures forever. To him who struck down great kings, for his steadfast love endures forever, and killed mighty kings, for his steadfast love endures forever. Sihon, king of the Amorites, for his steadfast love endures forever. And Og, king of Bashan, for his steadfast love endures forever. And gave their land as a heritage, for his steadfast love endures forever. A heritage to Israel, his servant, for his steadfast love endures forever. It is he who remembered us in our low estate, for his steadfast love endures forever, and rescued us from our foes, for his steadfast love endures forever. He who gives food to all flesh, for his steadfast love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of heaven, for his steadfast love endures forever. So this is not the first psalm that we've come across that has this title. And many of the themes here we've encountered already in the Psalms. We have a repeat of history. We have a remembrance of God's works. We have the things within the minds of the people of Israel that provides them support to the idea that there is something to be faithful in. There's something about their experience and their suffering and their commitment to one another that causes them to hold on. That is, in some sense, to stay united, to stay a national body, to stay a people. And so how can we use this psalm practically? What information from this psalm is meaningful to us? Now, apart from the structure of the psalm, that is, there is a line followed by the next that is, for his steadfast love endures forever, this sort of constant reminder that all these events are rooted within this love, this unfaltering love. And so we have the recognition that God is good. We have the recognition that God is the unity of all potential gods, out of all the things that man can find himself worshiping from his highest thoughts. They are all unified in one central being. To him who by understanding made the heavens. Now this is a reference to the very beginning of the Bible in Genesis. It's a very profound statement. To him who by understanding made the heavens. This intelligibility that permeated the universe. I wonder what we can say of it, because I imagine our conception as it is of the universe, of all of our advanced technology and our imaging that gives us a certain type of understanding of what the universe looks like, of how it behaves. So what does it mean for some being to have the understanding to make the heavens? Can we locate this heavens? Are the heavens throughout everything? We say that often in popular speech that the heavens are above and that hell is below. But perhaps this is not a literal above or a literal below. It's above in terms of meaning. Below in terms of absence, depravity, distance away from the good. It's a different view of this reality that's beyond the senses, the traditional senses. The eyesight, the olfaction, the hearing, the sensation. Our minds are the engine that can understand this. To him who by understanding made the heavens. An interesting thought to think that the heavens did not exist before the creation of this universe. I suppose they must have existed in some form prior to that. But for God to create something is almost like to have a river that originates from the mountain, that accepts its source from the precipitation. As the snow melts, it feeds into this structure. The water flows down the mountain and provides sustenance, nourishment to animals and plants and everything downstream of it. And yet, at this mountain, the relationship of this source is not an easily discernible one. Because the true relationship between the source of this river, let's say, the spring, it has to do with a cycle. It is not at one point that it exists. There are many things that go into the creation of this river. And it's easy for us to pinpoint the origin of it, because that's where it seems to us to begin. But if we were to move back farther than its origin, we would find this sort of continual system, this ever-flowing system, that might at once appear to be central. But then behind it is relationships built upon relationships. It's evaporation, it's precipitation, it is the interaction of the gravitational force that carries the waters It is the erosion of the land beneath it to provide a home, something to carry it, to allow it to flow. It has to do with the underlying earth, the ability of the earth to absorb or just maintain this riverbed so that it doesn't dry up. And so this metaphor of the river that comes from the mountain, and that the source of this river being this sort of cyclical process. I'm not entirely sure that this is absolutely representative of the divine, but I think at least the pattern is useful in understanding a creation of the heavens, perhaps. But I spent all this time trying to figure out the man behind the curtain. And really, all I need to do is to look in the mirror. And as each day passes, I make the changes that are necessary to stand looking in that mirror. And when that day comes that I'm completely satisfied with what I see, I think I'll at least have some appreciation for God's love. For then I would be honest with myself. I would love myself. I'd understand how difficult this is from the point of view of man. I can't imagine what the steadfast love of God is or feels like. I was thinking a lot today about failure. I was thinking a lot today about not even feeling like a man. Feeling this sort of way, this emotionless, dull, and I was thinking, eventually, life will come back to me. Joy will come back around. Or at least a degree of it that makes life tolerable. For there are certain days where life just seems to be this poison that slowly destroys. And there are others that where all I feel is a dull ache. And I think I think it is hopeful to imagine this steadfast love, to imagine this love in general, as though it's a place that we can get to. It's a place that we could find ourselves liberated from the darker side of our nature, the mundane, the tragically insufficient. If you would forgive me, we've already discussed the verses such as, "To him who by understanding made the heavens, To him who spread out the earth above the waters, to him who made the great lights, the sun to rule over the day, the moon and stars to rule over the night. You've already spoken of him who struck down the firstborn of Egypt and brought Israel out from among them. We spoke of his strong hand. We spoke of he who divided the Red Sea in two. We spoke of Israel's liberation. We spoke of the wilderness. We spoke of the kings. But we haven't spoken enough of love. We haven't given enough thanks. I don't think we've truly understood that this steadfast love endures forever. For this is the very thing that caused all of these things to be. And the irony is that a man can read this, and although the line beneath every statement says, "For his steadfast love endures forever," it passes over his head as though it was meaningless. We can have great philosophical wanderings about the nature of reality, but when it comes to the individual and the satisfaction of his soul, we are blind because we think that if we understand reality, we can somehow use it for our own purposes, to control it. But now as I think of love, I think of this steadfast love, I'm put into a more sober state of mind. For I understand that no matter how much I understand about the world and about reality, I'll still be stuck with myself. And this self, without truly accepting this love, will burden itself straight up to the end. Perhaps it'll wish for the end for itself. And this would be a tragic state of affairs. It's somewhat of a humorous thing to speak into the void. Hoping that one day the echoes will find the ears of another. And yet it's a hopeless affair. For the echo that they will hear may not be the right one at the right time. And just as the man that reads this steadfast love enduring forever, it goes right over their heads. It's lost on the present as it's lost on the future. And so how is it that we can stay present? That we can accept this love? And we don't have to burden ourselves to the grave by understanding our own failures. How can we find ourselves in a position to accept life as it is presented to us? By the waters of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Zion. On the willows there we hung up our lyres, for there our captors required of us a song, and our tormentors mirth, saying, "Sing us one of those songs of Zion." How shall we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? If I forgot you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget its skill. Let my tongue stick to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not set Jerusalem above my highest joy. Remember, O Lord, against the Edomites, the day of Jerusalem, how they said, lay it bare, down to its foundations. O daughter of Babylon, doomed to be destroyed. Blessed shall he be who repays you with what you have done to us. Blessed shall he be who takes your little ones and dashes them against the rock. Now who am I to complain when I hear a poem such as this? To understand that there have been those subject to slavery, and that their very cry out into the void and amongst one another catches the ear of their master, only for them to find it amusing. How can one retain their soul under this condition? How can one live on after their foundations have been destroyed? What is one to think? How is one to keep one's faith in the face of this? But no matter how small or how large our troubles, we face the same problem. We face the problem of faith. We face the problem of keeping it, of seeing love as it fades into the darkness. As we bring back our example of the darkened room that man finds himself, the illustration of his existence, darkened so that he cannot see. He stumbles through it, to feel around the various objects in the room. And every time he loses hope, he forgets a little bit about what he has found and what he has known in his strivings. It's an imperative. It is of the utmost importance that we have regular reminders to keep us grounded, to tell us where we have been, to tell us what we have learned, and to take a deep breath in the face of our agony and our suffering, and to remember that the steadfast love is here for us, now and forever. I give you thanks, O Lord, with my whole heart. Before the gods, I sing your praise. I bow down towards your holy temple, and give thanks to your name for your steadfast love and your faithfulness. For you have exalted above all things your name and your word. On the day I called, you answered me. My strength of soul you increased. All the kings of the earth shall give you thanks, O Lord, for they have heard the words of your mouth, and they shall sing in the ways of the Lord. For great is the glory of the Lord, for though the Lord is high, he regards the lowly, but the haughty he knows from afar. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you preserve my life. You stretch out your hand against the wrath of my enemies, and your right hand delivers me. The Lord will fulfill his purpose from me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not forsake the work of your hand. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from afar. You search out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You hem me in, behind and before, and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high. I cannot attain it. Where shall I go from your spirit? Or where shall I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the utmost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light about me be night. Even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is bright as the day, for darkness is as light with you. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God! How vast is the sum of them! If I would count them, they are more than the sand. I awake, and I am still with you. O that you would slay the wicked, O God! O men of blood, depart from me. They speak against you with malice intent. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with complete hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me, and know my thoughts. And see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting. And what does it mean for his eye to be upon me, if I fail to fix my gaze upon him? Certainly a failure on my part, for he knows my path. He knows my ways. He knows the words of my tongue. It is well beyond me. But what is not beyond me is to say thank you. Is to appreciate the knowledge and the love that I have been given despite my nature, despite my thoughts. You know, often I've spoken of man's ability, of his reflection of the divine nature, of his awesome power to raise the earth from its meaningless existence, to breathe into it. But when I read verse 16, your eyes saw my unformed substance. in your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. I'm reminded of my place, and I am humbled, and I am thankful. I am pleased. I am at ease. I am loved. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me, and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Now this is quite the statement. How many times have I felt as though I could use a good cleansing, that I could be forever cleansed of what burdens me. I could be cleansed, I could be forgiven for the sins that I have committed, the things that continue to haunt me after I fail and I give in to my weakness. You know, the thing about sin is that it is this thing that burrows deeply within the conscience of man. And I say conscience because it perverts our understanding of what is right and wrong. It burrows so deeply because sin in and of itself is a parasite of the mind. It tries its best to evade understanding, to hide in the darkest corners, to keep itself secret from the knowing mind. Of course, it doesn't always succeed. There are many instances in which the mind is absolutely aware of what plagues it. But regardless of its condition and how we find it within ourselves, this sin altogether acts in a similar manner. That is, to over time slowly pervert our understanding of what is right and what is wrong. And eventually, if it burrows deep enough into our hearts, or again into our conscious mind, into the very fiber of our conscience, then we have become corrupted. And accepting God, accepting the all-knowing nature to flood into the soul, is at once a desirable thing. Certainly desirable if one is aware of their affliction and wishes to be rid of it. Perhaps not for others who are unaware of it. But when this thing, the absolute, floods in, what it meets is a cavern that is so vast and so hollow that the mind feels like this love is attempting to destroy the self. It's attempting to destroy the foundation. Now, this perversion, due to this parasite, the habitual sin, is not a strong foundation, and it's easily swept away if the conscious mind lets it. However, if it feels threatened, if the ego is overinflated, it will hold on to it for dear life. It will hold on to it such a degree that it can, in some cases, attempt to sacrifice itself, to preserve itself, to preserve its current understanding of itself. For perhaps it does not understand that without its behavior, without the structure that it has formed for itself, then this is a worse kind of death than that of the complete cessation of the conscious mind. And its resistance, fueled by its freedom of will, or its resistance, I should say, that is allowed to resist because of its freedom of will, prevents God from intervening, healing. And so I know that is a negative approach, perhaps, to understanding this. Because the end two verses that I read, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way in me, and lead me in the way of everlasting." This is a beautiful statement, especially coming off of the heels of "Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them." These are very beautiful statements, very uplifting. But as for many, as for myself, we walk this path of life, and it is difficult at times, especially in the middle of our salvation, of our coming to, of our recognition, and of our awakening. Psalm 140. Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. To the choir master, a psalm of David. Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Preserve me from violent men, who plan evil things in their heart, and stir up wars continually. They make their tongues sharp as a serpent's, and under their lips is venom of asps. Guard me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from violent men, who have planned to trip up my feet. The arrogant have hidden a trap for me, and with cords they have spread a net. Beside the way they have set snares for me. I say to the Lord, you are my God. Give ear to the voice of my pleas for mercy, O Lord. O Lord, my Lord, the strength of my salvation. You have covered my head in the day of battle. Grant not, O Lord, the desires of the wicked. Do not further their evil plot, or they will be exalted. As for the head of those who surround me, let the mischief of their lips overwhelm them. Let burning coals fall upon them. Let them be cast into fire, into miry pits, no more to rise. Let not the slanderer be established in the land. Let evil hunt down the violent man speedily. I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted, and will execute justice for the needy. Surely the righteous shall give thanks to your name. The upright shall dwell in your presence. There are many things that I go about my life believing are relatively straightforward. I take them on face value because they seemingly just make sense. But upon further reflection, there appears this deep, often dark, in the sense of either a misunderstanding or a general lack of exploration, which would be in a sense a misunderstanding or a void of understanding. This deep, dark, cavernous well that underlies the previously held belief that a principle or an idea was simple. And it's within this taking for granted of the depth of meaning of something that is seemingly so simple that I think does us an injustice. And what does us justice is to give light to this well of the seemingly simple idea. And when I read verse 2, who plan evil things in their heart and stir up wars continually, I ask myself the question, what does it mean to be an individual that plans evil things in their heart? And if one is to do something as to plan something within their heart, what can we say of the heart? What is this space? What is this object? What does it mean in this context? Certainly, what the heart is not is the physical structure behind the sternum, for that would not make any sense. The heart is a symbol of something that is elevated in nature. Perhaps we reference the heart because it is so fundamental to our existence, to our being, that we attribute to it a certain sense of value. For without this structure, without this heart, the body, the mind, everything could not survive. It supplies the body. It is the pump that supplies the body with the blood it needs to sustain itself, to give the tissues the oxygen that is needed, the oxygen that is needed to create the energy that is needed to perform metabolic processes. The metabolic processes which are necessary to maintain the function of the organs, to maintain the movement of the limbs, to allow the senses to sense, to allow the mind to perceive, to allow the mind to think. It does as it does, regardless of our rational desire. It does this because it is its duty to do it. It is its fundamental being, its fundamental purpose. And in this way, the heart is this sort of just object, this just being. It forms as one of our centerpieces to our existence. It is fundamental to us as human beings. Now, if someone is to plant something evil within their heart, or to plan something evil within their heart. I think they are to pervert this fundamental nature, this fundamental being, the fundamental purpose that the heart provides. And when you take something, you remove the function, the purpose of a particular structure, and you attempt to pervert it with something that is outside of its scope of responsibility, that cannot contain what you ask of it. It is outside of its very being. Then I think you have something that moves away from God. It is no longer in union with God. The heart is a part of our innermost being. It can include our emotions, our desires, our will. In some aspect, I think it includes our thoughts. Again, it's a fundamental thing. It is the seat, the root of our identity. And so regardless of the accuracy of this particular symbol, I think what we can say for certain is that the heart as a symbolic structure is something that is deeply rooted within us, and any change to this structure, any modification, will have wide, sweeping consequences, many downstream consequences. For if one is to plant evil there, they're planting evil in the foundation. Now, if the foundation is meant to hold something, if it is meant to support something, then whatever chooses to rest upon it, whatever chooses to utilize its structure or its deceptive nature as something that offers structure, something that offers stability. It is almost akin to a trap that's in the woods that attempts to trap an animal. All the animal can see is food that is within the trap, something that sustains it. It's structure in a certain sense, in the sort of animalistic sense. But when the animal finds itself on the trap, it's too late. The trap has captured the animal. And in this way, I think, the evil within the heart of man captures the innocence of another, and it attempts to pervert that innocence toward their own ends. They offer deceit, they offer lies, they offer deception, because what they desire is the satisfaction of their own ends and their own aims. They have no regard for the other individual. And for those that desire purity of heart, I think it is an everlasting, no, I shouldn't say everlasting, but almost seemingly everlasting danger that we can stumble upon this trap in the woods as we are searching for this purity of heart. The strongest among us, I think, can be fooled by a mask, by something that parades itself to be one thing and yet is actually another. I think of our political establishments. I think about the governments that have existed over the years. I think about the things that are told to the people yet the things that are practiced behind closed doors. This perversion of trust and of innocence. A thought crossed my mind as I was thinking about the heart, and as I was talking about it. I couldn't help but liberate myself from the thought of the difference between the heart, the soul, and the spirit. And perhaps we can add mind into there. But for a moment, if we were just to take the heart, which we've discussed, as this rooted object, this fundamental object to the being of the human being, has a particular duty, it holds particular characteristics. The spirit is something that is close in my mind to the word of essence. And as I think about this essence, I think of something that is not quite the object, but it is a part of the object that is perceivable, that is carried from it. And an illustration, a natural example in my mind, would be the smell of a fire. I think about the fall. I think about when people burn their leaves in their yards, and you get this particular smell. And you know that these people are burning leaves. You know that there's a fire somewhere. You don't know where it's coming from, but the wind carries this smell to you. And in this way, I imagine a spirit. It is not the action or the object of the fire or the fire pit that you perceive. What you perceive is the spirit of the fire, something about the object that is perceivable, but it's somehow in some way distant to it. Now, the spirit can lead you to the source of it, certainly. But the way it comes to you is not through the totality of its presence and interaction with you. And so when I think about the evil, when I think about evil men, I can't help but to imagine that the more astute of us, with an elevated sense of a nose that is not necessarily distinct, but a nose that is sensitive to pick up on this smell of the fire, the spirit of the fire. I can't help but to imagine that the heart of a righteous man would have the sense to pick up the spirit of an evil man. And so before they even saw him coming, that they looked upon this evil man in an unveiled sense. They could be communicating with this person face to face, but this is not the fire. The fire of the evil man lies within the heart. The heart, among men, remains hidden. It remains hidden within them. And it takes many years to uncover this heart, to understand it, to move closer to an individual. But to return to the point, to return to the spirit, I think an evil man, just like a fire, and just like a wind that carries the smell of this fire, the evil man, the evil heart, and its deceptive plans will create a spirit that we are able to sense, that we are able to pick up on, that the mind is able to perceive, just as it can perceive the smell of the fire. Now we may not be able to identify exactly where the fire is. We may not be able to identify exactly how this person is evil, what their designs are. But if we can perceive of it, if we can smell it, in our example, staying with our example, then I think in this sort of way, we can satisfy the desire of David here to be delivered from evil men. Now this is as far as that thought went, and although I mentioned the differentiation between the heart and the spirit and the soul and the mind, I don't wish to get into the soul, and I don't wish to get into mind. We have discussed these on previous podcasts, no doubt. What I'd like to do is to finish this psalm. And so we left off at verse 2 out of 13. But I find it interesting what one verse of a psalm can do for the rest of it. It's almost as if the words need something to flow from. They need a point of origin. And the first two verses provide that source of origin. And if you think about those long enough, you think about everything downstream of it. And eventually the rest of the psalm, once you've thought about it, perhaps once you've talked about it into a microphone, the rest of the psalm is within everything that you've thought. So verse 1 and 2, deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Preserve me from violent men, who plan evil things in their heart and stir up wars continually. And so here we have the flow. They make their tongues sharp as serpents. Lies, we've talked about it. Under their lips is the venom of asps. Now that word, ASPS, I think is just a type of snake. So venom, poison, the sort of destructive quality that we've discussed about the hearts of evil men. The evil men who have planned to trip up our feet. We've talked about the foundation. We've talked about the setting of the snare or the trap. Verse 5, the arrogant have hidden a trap for me, and with cords they have spread a net. Beside the way they have set snares for me. And then the subsequent verses, we have the appeal to the Lord, the recognition of God that is the voice that is the sort of the savior, the salvation away from the pull of the hearts of the evil men, the deceptive force. And God is the thing that is above and beyond that deceptive force, that allows us not to be corrupted, that allows us to be saved from it. And then the remainder of the verses, as often is the case, as in the style of David and the fashion of David, we have the desire and the wish for God to destroy the wicked, destroy the evil. Let burning coals fall upon them, let them be cast into the fire, into miry pits, no more to rise. Let not the slander be established in the land. Let evil hunt down the violent man speedily. And then we have the recognition of God's path. I know that the Lord will maintain the cause of the afflicted, and will execute justice for the needy. Surely the righteous shall give thanks to your name. The upright shall dwell in your presence. It's very interesting, the flow and the structure of these psalms. And it's also interesting how 2 verses can hold such dense information that can be unpacked by the mind and lead to this torrent, this flood of information that's useful for us, if properly directed. So I think this is where we will end it for today. We will continue next time with Psalm 141, Give ear to my voice.